Coming up today, the wait is finally over. Emotions will be unbridled and raw as a rare round of reunions for families divided by the Korean War begins this afternoon. The defense chiefs of South Korea and Japan are set to meet in Seoul. The officials will discuss military information sharing to deter threats from North Korea. Plus, it might be time to break out the face masks as a band of thick smog from China is sitting over the Korean Peninsula. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Tuesday, the 20th of October. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. And we begin with the highly anticipated inter-Korean family reunions. In what is sure to be an extremely emotional time, war-separated families on the Korean Peninsula will reunite for the first time in over 60 years. Later today, Gwonsoa is in Gosong, Gangwon-do province, not too far away from where the event will take place. So, have the families crossed the border yet?
Mark, most likely not yet, but very soon. Now, I'm here at the Gosong Unification Observatory, as you said, not that far away from the venue where the reunions will take place, the Mount Kumgang Resort. And if you look closely, you can also see the northern side of the Korean Peninsula behind me. Now, around an hour ago, the buses carrying the 389 families and medical staff and also the media, for example, too, by 16 buses in the morning, and a few of them had to be taken by ambulance due to health issues. Now, many of them were in wheelchairs too, but that just shows how strong their will is to meet their North Korean families in this first round of reunions, which are 96 people, North Korean people, that applied to see their relatives in the south. Now, around 2.5 hours ago, the families arrived at the Inter-Korean Transit Office, where they were greeted by members and the president of the Korean Red Cross, the organizers of the event. Mark?
And so, when is the exact moment the families will finally get to see and embrace each other?
Well, the long-awaited moment is going to be at 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. or 3 p.m. North Korean time, that is. And that's going to be when the families will all gather in the first group meeting. And on the second day, the families will be able to gather for private meetings, which will be closed to the media. Now, in total, the families will meet for 3 days, but their actual time together will only be 12 hours. But that is an extension from the usual 11 due to a request by the South Korean Unification Ministry. Now, it's seen as a good sign that the North agreed to the request. The families will have a lot to catch up with during the short amount of time given, like this participant.
When the June 25th war broke out, my sister and I were parted. I was 13 and she was 18. I made this pencil case for her. Other things I couldn't bring for her because they're too big and big things are not allowed.
Families hope for the event. Restrictions to gifts are not the only ones now. The South Korean families were briefed on the do's and don'ts in the North, which includes talking about politics and using specific wordings. Now, nevertheless, many families who haven't even gotten a glimpse of their loved ones yet are desperately waiting for these kinds of reunions to become a regular event. Now, less than 800 people will be part of the event, but there is an estimated 66,000 family members torn apart who haven't gotten the chance to see each other. And time is running out for these elderly people. This has been Gwonsoa reporting live from the Gosong Unification Observatory.
Now, the reunions are essentially underway for the few families that were chosen. But for those who were not, the reunions remain an unlikely dream that they may never get to experience. Kwon Jang-ho brings us the background.
1953. The Korean War ends and the peninsula is divided into north and south, displacing an estimated 10 million families. For decades, these families remained torn until the Korean Red Cross launched a campaign in 1971 to try and find and reunite them. A reunion finally took place in September 1985 as part of a cultural exchange event between the two Koreas. But it would be another 15 years until the next one came along. At a groundbreaking inter-Korean summit in 2000, South Korean President Kim Tae-jung successfully negotiated a deal with North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, and a series of reunion events followed. Since then, there have been 19 more, and this year's will be the 20th. The reunions have been hailed as a breakthrough in inter-Korean relations, but for the separated families, it can be a frustrating and agonizing process, as most do not get the chance to meet. Since 1988, over 130,000 people in South Korea have registered with the government as separated family members. Almost half have passed away now, and less than 4,000 families have taken part in the reunions. For this latest round, 100 people from each side were chosen by lottery to reunite with their families. Why only 100? North Korea claims that the Mamkungang resort where the meeting is taking place can only accommodate a limited number. But South Korean experts say it is more to do with control, as the participants are hand-picked and given instructions on what to say and how to act. The families who are fortunate enough to participate in the reunions only have a few hours over several days to spend with their long-lost relatives. And once the reunion is over, there is no further contact between them. For the thousands still waiting, time is running out. Over 50% of those currently on the separated families list in South Korea are in their 80s or above. Surviving family members and their advocates are pushing for more reunions, but with the North Korean regime unwilling to consent and the political relationship between the two Koreas unpredictable, most families will be left wondering about the fate of their loved ones. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Now, in other news, South Korea and Japan will discuss ways to boost defence cooperation and other bilateral security issues during a ministerial meeting on this Tuesday. Seoul's Defence Minister Han Min-gu will hold talks with his Japanese counterpart Gen Nakatani in Seoul this afternoon, in about 3 hours' time, in fact, and resume negotiations on sharing military intelligence to deter missile and nuclear threats from North Korea. During the meeting, the Japanese minister is expected to explain Tokyo's new security laws that allow its military to fight abroad for the first time since World War II. Seoul's defense minister, for his part, is expected to reaffirm South Korea's stance that Japanese troops will not be allowed to practice collective self-defense on the Korean Peninsula without Seoul's consent. Korea's foreign ministry has condemned the latest visit by a large group of Japanese lawmakers to a controversial shrine that honours Japan's war dead, including 14 Class A war criminals. Seoul-based Yonhap News reports that a foreign ministry spokesperson said paying homage at the Yasukuni shrine is, quote, no different from glorifying Japan's forcible colonisation and war of aggression. The Japan Times reports that 73 lawmakers from Japan's ruling party and 96 from other parties visited the shrine to mark the last day of the country's 4-day autumn festival. This latest visit comes after 2 cabinet members, the Internal Affairs Minister and the Justice Minister, visited the shrine over the weekend, while Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sent an offering. A historical building that was once the centre of Korean diplomacy is being brought back to life after more than a century out of Korea's hands. Korea hopes the building will become a popular tourist hotspot in Washington. Son Jung-in has more.
This reddish-brown building in the Logan Circle neighborhood of Washington doesn't look all that different to the other buildings dotted around it. But for Koreans, the building holds great significance. It was used as a diplomatic headquarters by Korea's Joseon dynasty and then the Korean Empire from the late 1800s for 16 years before it was annexed by Japan in 1910. 102 years later, Korea regained ownership of the building when the Cultural Heritage Administration purchased the building for $3.5 million in 2012. And on Monday, work finally began to restore the 3-story building. The Overseas Korean Cultural Heritage Foundation, which is managing the restoration process, says the first and second floor will be remodeled into how they would have looked when the building first opened in 1889. The third floor will be used as an exhibition hall to promote Korean culture and Korea-US relations. The building is the only former diplomatic headquarters set up in the latter years of the Joseon dynasty that is still in its original Victorian style. It was forcibly sold to the Japanese for just $5 in June 1910. Shortly after, Japan sold it on to private American owners for a mere $10. Now, Korea will spend around $4 million restoring the building to its former glory. It's scheduled to open to the public in early 2017. 손정인, Arirang News.
Now, if you're watching us in Korea and you've been out and about today, you've probably noticed that there's a blanket of smog settled over the country, and the fine dust alerts have been issued around the country. The high dust levels are attributed to atmospheric conditions and smog from China, which is actually expected to keep the nation hazy for the time being. Park Se-young has the details.
For the last few days, the deep blue autumn sky over Korea has been covered by a thick haze of smog, prompting more people to put on masks. Gyeonggi-do Province began issuing fine dust alerts on Saturday when dust concentration levels skyrocketed to a daily average of 200 micrograms per cubic meter. In the capital of Seoul, fine dust levels reached 137 micrograms per cubic meter, or 4 to 5 times the seasonal average. And some areas in the country have had ultrafine dust, which can cause serious respiratory problems. The thick blanket of fine dust can be traced back to stable atmospheric conditions in which fog and haze combine with pollutants.
Fine dust, which rose in concentration over the weekend, remains trapped in the atmosphere. And a northern wind brought an additional influx of dust, contributing to the already high dust levels in the midwestern part of the country.
Smog from China, which usually travels to Korea in winter, also pushed dust concentration levels up. And the haze isn't expected to leave anytime soon. Experts say Korea will need to remain vigilant against the dust through the rest of autumn. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, in economic news, Korea's producer prices tumbled to their lowest level in more than 5 years last month. The Bank of Korea says the producer price index, which gauges price changes before reaching the consumer, dropped 4.5% from a year ago to 100.47. The index, which has fallen for 14 consecutive months on year, is now at its lowest point since July 2010. The central bank attributed the fall in September to a big drop in prices of industrial goods due to weak global oil prices. The price index for manufactured goods fell more than 7% on year, while utilities slumped 9%. The number of tourists visiting Korea this year will slide by roughly 10%, due in large part to the fallout from the outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome over the summer. The Korea Culture and Tourism Institute predicts the number of tourists to Korea this year to drop to between 12 to 13 million. That's lower than the 14 million visitors last year. It also falls well short of an earlier government projection of 15 million. This was made before the MERS outbreak. The Institute projects the decline will pull the country's tourism revenue down by up to $1.6 billion. The number of Koreans visiting other countries is projected to hit a record high this year. Now, the latest military technologies are being displayed at a huge defense exhibition in Seoul this week. Kim Hyun-bin went to check it out and filed this report.
If you are interested in the latest military hardware, the Seoul International Aerospace and Defense Exhibition 2015 is the place to be. This event kicked off Tuesday with an exciting air show from the Korea Air Force's Black Eagle Squad, which performed a spectacle of aerial maneuvers using Korean-made T-50 fighter jets. Even a U.S. F-22 Raptor made a rare flying appearance.
Well, we're here to really as a thank you to the people of Korea for hosting U.S. forces here on the peninsula, as well as to strengthen our joint relationship with the Republic of Korea Air Force and the military in general.
The event showcased scores of state-of-the-art weaponry, including Korea's missiles and heavy artillery.
The ADEX plays two key roles. It enhances the status of Korea's defense industries and aims to export domestic defense technologies overseas.
A total of 386 firms from 32 countries are showcasing their latest weapons developments in hopes of sealing lucrative deals with buyers. Many foreign firms are here to compete for a chance to implement their technology into the Korean military. And at the top of the list is Korea's high-profile indigenous combat plane project.
First of all, we are very glad that we have the opportunity to exhibit the engine here. We are coming to offer the engine for the KFX program. We have been here last year. We understand now the selection process comes to the final.
This year's Aerospace and Defense exhibition, which is the largest in Northeast Asia to date, will run for 6 days at the Seoul airport through to October 25th. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Well, those are the stories we have for you at this hour. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website, arirang.com/news. And do enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.